Hey, read through the word. Today is August 28th, and today's lesson is called Brother's Keeper. Pretty sure I've named a lesson that somewhere along the way. But we are looking today at Obadiah. Obadiah verses 10 and 11. So there's only one chapter, but verses 10 and 11 that say, because of the violence you did to your close relatives in Israel, you'll be filled with shame and destroyed forever. When they were invaded, you stood aloof, refusing to help them. Foreign invaders carried off their wealth and cast lots to divide up Jerusalem. But you acted like one of Israel's enemies. Ouch. Brother's keeper. Okay, so let's talk about Obadiah. All right, so for a long time, I can't remember how many years, I taught Awana. Which, honestly, if you have Awana in your church, and they need volunteers, can I strongly encourage you to do it. I think Awana was is a great tool. I think that all three of my children came to a saving knowledge of Jesus Christ through the Awana program because they knew the truth of the Bible. They knew the verses, and it was choosing to believe that they were true. And so I love Awana. I taught Sparks and TNT. And I taught TNT, which is Truth in Training. I think I taught that just girls at that age, but all ages when they were younger. Awana stands for Approved Workmen Are Not Ashamed. It's about Scripture. It's all about Scripture memory. It was the greatest tools to me as an adult to memorize Scripture. It was probably one of the things that kick-started, and it was probably one of the ways I remember most Scripture is because if you have to sit there week by week, so they get a little book and they memorize Scripture, and I was one of those mean teachers that would say, okay, tell me your verse, and they'd say the verse, and I'd say, okay, explain to me what that means. I'm not just going to sign you off, because we're not just here to memorize. We're here to store the word in our hearts. So we do that. All of that said, one of the things you have to do is, in the kindergarten book, is you have to memorize all the books of the Bible. And, they do Old Testament and the New Testament, and then when you do a review, you do them all. And I used to make up, like, crazy rhymes and crazy different things to help kids remember. I did hand motions with my own children. They never did set to music stuff, but we would do things when we get to Obadiah. I'd go, Obadiah, to help them remember that was the next book. So when they get there, all I have to do is go, oh, and they'd remember Obadiah. And so, silly, but it worked. So every time I see Obadiah, I think of that. I know that doesn't have anything to do, but walk down memory lane with me for a little bit. So, Obadiah is the shortest book in the Old Testament. I think I went into some major detail last year about a lot of this. But we're going to go, you get the whole book of Obadiah every day, every year on this day. And so we're going to learn about Obadiah. Obadiah brings a prophecy of judgment against Edom. Now, if we remember from our Old Testament studies, Edom is from the family line of Esau. So Israel is Jacob, Edom is Esau. Okay, and so there was some friction there back in Genesis. Well, the friction really never goes away. It says in Genesis that Esau settled at Seir, Seir, which later became Edom, which in the New Testament will be an area called Idumea, once it's a Roman occupied place. So Edom, this is where I need my map. Should have worn my map shirt from yesterday. This is where I need the map shirt to show you that Edom, okay, clock face. This is the easiest way to do it. If we're looking at a clock and Israel is the center, oh, let's do it this way. Israel's at 1 o'clock. Edom is the center of the clock, and then like Egypt is at 7 o'clock. Straight line like that way. So down to the southwest of Israel, headed towards Egypt, is where Edom was. And so they had like encouraged the destruction of their brothers, basically, family-wise. That's what God says. Your close relatives in Egypt. Other translation calls it your brother. So, judgment's coming for that. For this reason. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about Obadiah. Obadiah, the name, means worshiper of Yahweh. And the whole book, I really like this quote from Chuck Swindoll, so I used it here. Obadiah's singular focus points to a significant, albeit difficult, truth about humanity's relationship with God. When people remove themselves from or place themselves in opposition to God's people, they can expect judgment rather than restoration at the end of life. What's going on? Edom has been found guilty of pride before the Lord. So prideful, they thought of themselves as able to mock, to steal from, and to even harm God's chosen people. That's why I wanted you to see where Egypt was. Because Egypt was like, oh, we want to go invade Israel, but we don't have a way there because there's this land, Edom, in our way. Edom says, oh, come on through. Y'all can use our land and walk through and go get our brothers. God said, no way. You're going to be held accountable for that. God reminds Edom of the poor treatment of its brother. You were supposed to help them. They're my people. And they're your family. But you thought it was better to make fun of them and watch them be destroyed. And God says no. God held Edom accountable for not being its brother's keeper. What happened? Edom eventually will disappear from history. Like I said, by the time you get to New Testament, there is no Edom. They will disappear from history. And it's really the book of Obadiah and the story of Edom is a huge picture of the truth of Proverbs 16:18. Pride goes before destruction, and haughtiness before a fall. And that's the story of Obadiah and what he's trying to tell the people of Edom. And, it's easy to look at them and say, oh, how could they do that? But I have to question myself about the destructive power of pride and the consequences of living in a self-serving manner. That's what Edom was doing. Am I guilty of that? Do I live in a self-serving manner? I'm under God's authority, and His purposes are greater than my silly little wants. But which do I put first? Do I put His way first? Do I find my hope in being His? Or is it in, the lust of the eyes, the lust of the flesh, and the pride of life? And that's a big reminder when we read Obadiah. So we'll see you next time on Read Through the Word.